Yeah. Well, welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and we have Ryan. We're going to talk about NutriMeds and how we can make you well. First, we want to talk about what illness is. And I don't think it's taught correctly in medical school, naturopathy school, chiropractic school, nutritional school, basically anywhere. We're approximating it, but the approximation isn't, I think, good enough. First off, I remember talking to my pathology colleagues, because they always thought, because I had finished my research project in marine bacteriology and at age 21 in 5 months by sleeping on the lab floor, and I was all ready to just write the thesis. I had it all completed. And I did research in marine bacteriology and isolating a Vibrio marinus bacteria that could create cereal-methyl polysaccharide converted to food. Was a 1 pound to 100 pound conversion in 1 week. Not 1 month, 1 week, with a bioreactor digester. And then I started applying my biochemistry when I went to medicine. I became an environmental, if you want to call it, doctor. I was a member of Greenpeace before it got converted by the global banker maniacs into an organization to try to push their agenda, to push things like, spraying seal pups with red dye, which would cause the orca orcinus, or killer whales, or the seabirds to pluck the eyes out of the baby seal pups. I saw the same thing when I went through medical school. In fact, my professor, Dr. Robert Brown, said, you're going to deal with a lot of knucklehead doctors as you go through medicine, because you're my smartest resident that's ever done a PhD, and quicker than any other one that's ever done it, usually 3 to 5 years. I did mine in 6 months. And I'm not boasting to tell you that. I'm boasting it because I'm telling you I take every topic, whether it's financial in the last hour, and try to study everything I can on it with people like Ted Anderson or medical or whatever, and I want to dissect it down to its subatomic particle physics. When you look at functional medicine, what we're talking about is a living pathology of the body. And if you don't understand the biochemistry of the body, just like we talked about the article on Splenda, where if you eat Splenda, it converts to dioxins, that's horrendous. The fact that it's still approved by the so-called food industry and by the FDA is an obscenity. The fact that doctors are still prescribing drugs that deplete minerals, vitamins, and actually destroy enzyme pathways in your body or ion channels is evil. There's no other nice word for it. And when we give you nutraceuticals, there's no side effects. You just simply correct nutritional imbalances, correct enzyme imbalances, detoxify the body of chemicals, heavy metals, and other things. You try to prepare the soil so that the primary stem cells that are in place in organs or are going to migrate from your central bone marrow in your hips or elsewhere, your ribs, your iliac crest, or your long bones, so that they can actually cross-talk with the other cells and tissues and differentiate. So we're talking about something much more advanced than, take this blurp, blurp, blurp vitamin that's mined from 50 million-year-old dinosaur bones, or take this, it's the magical miracle cure. There's no such thing as a miracle cure. I don't believe in the word cure anyway. I believe in restoring balance, restoring capacity to heal, restoring the soil so the stem cells will actually differentiate and can create new tissue, which they're doing every day. I mean, you're not the same you were 10 years ago. You've rebuilt yourself if you supplied the right nutrients. And if you don't supply the right nutrients and you smoke and eat garbage and drink like a fish and don't exercise, you're going to become blobified. You will turn into a blob. And the current system, actually, I was looking at the front catalog of Gerald Celente, and he says, he talks about the Affordable Care Act and how bad it is, but he says, don't blame the Obamacare, blame it on I don't care. Well, if you care, you're listening to the program, you got to exercise, you got to diet, you got to cut out the sugars, and you got to cut out the artificial sweeteners, but you have to take supplements. Don't take garbage. Don't go online, go click, click, click to Amazon and think, well, I'm going to get the best supplements here, or Vitacost, or some other place, or even your so-called local naturopath who just wants to flog whatever they think is best. The level of training of the natural doctors, naturopaths, and so on is what I call, by and large, pretty Mickey Mouse. It's pretty low level. They don't have the advanced toxicology to understand, or the surgical understanding, or the imaging studies, or the advanced genetic studies, or organic acids to understand that these things are present. And if you don't find out what's wrong in your body in the first place, and you don't physically correct those targeted things, you actually can amplify deficiencies and imbalances. So, for example, if we do a QRMA, find out that your thiamine levels are in your boots, and then we do a blood test through labtestingdirect.com and find out your heavy metals and other things, or you're loaded up with organic acids that indicate that you have a massive overgrowth of fungi, which have thiaminase destroying your thiamine, Well, if we don't correct that thiamine and also clean out your bowel of chronic fungal infections, how the heck do you expect to get better? And if you have thiamine deficiency, how do you expect your mitochondria to work, or your nerves to work, or your brain to work, or your mitochondria and your heart muscle to work? You can't. And so when I see doctors figure, well, such and such is wrong with your numbers, we're going to pour in another drug to chase the last drug, it reminds me of that song that we would sing as kids, I saw an old woman who ate a fly. I don't know why she ate the fly. And then, of course, she swallowed eventually, after swallowing larger and larger animals to eat the last animal that ate the fly, she swallowed a horse, and of course, she died, of course. Well, that's what's happening to a lot of people. By the time they get into seniors' home, or they're a certain age, and it's the same with the very awful hospital system. These knuckleheads in the VA system should know it's criminal to give mercury amalgams when if they have it spill in their dental office, you have to pull in a hazmat team because it's a hazardous material. You can't even operate in there and do dentistry anymore until the place is spickety span clean, certified by a federal agency. That's crazy. So I want people to understand, well, we're going to give you information here. And by the way, when I provide these consults, I used to charge up into 2008 when the recession hit. I used to charge a lot. I'm not even going to tell you how much it was, but it was a lot. It was, let's put it this way, it was the level of a high-priced attorney cost per hour. I don't charge a cent now, because when I prayed, God said don't charge the king or pauper a cent. Don't let them think that there's some barrier or you're trying to flog a certain idea. I want to teach, and I teach doctors and patients around the world. At the very least, I'm going to get them to ask better questions. So what do you think of this? What do you think if you did this test, you could validate that what I'm telling you is actually true or not? And they go, whoa, you mean I can do an imaging study to prove that I've remyelinated neural pathways because I got Asperger's in my son? I can do a quantitative EEG or look at organic acids and see that the toxic overuse of antibiotics causes my child to get autism? You're kidding. You mean I can actually test it in his urine and see that we screwed up his brain because his family doctor and his pediatrician gave him so damn many antibiotics, he's generating anaerobic bacteria molecules that cross the blood-brain barrier and screw up his brain chemistry forever? You're kidding. My. I'm not kidding, okay? And if you think I'm damned angry, that's not a good enough, strong enough word. I am frustrated with what I call dino docs, as Sherry Rogers says it. I call them the toxic docs. The doctors that won't get out of their own way because they're afraid, they're quivering. They're afraid that the state licensing authority, they're afraid the hospital commissions will say, oh my gosh, you can't treat Lyme disease longer than that. You can't diagnose XYZ. You can't make a diabetic non-diabetic. You can't stop atrial fibrillation by just increasing people's magnesium in their CoQ10. And you can actually measure it in their red blood cells. You can't do that. That's bad for business. You better, it's bad for business. I remember the line from the Christmas Carol says, my business is mankind. Well, it is. Our business is cellular kind. Your tissues, your organs. It's talking about the fact that if you aren't in the zone of compensation, you're going to get old and it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful, ugly, and you're going to be, as I say, you're going to slide into those older years, which may hit a lot younger than you think. I mean, we're getting 20 years olds with inflammatory bowel disease and signs of dementia. We're seeing people with all kinds of diseases, mature onset diabetes of the young, and there's no excuse for it. So we talked about this the other day. We talked about, I gave some research articles that you sent over to me, Ryan, we received from our research facility that supplies us with the leptin metabolic. Insulin receptors are a big deal. If you do a cardio-ion panel or other tests through Genova Metametrics, you can actually measure your fasting and 2-RPC blood sugar and blood insulin. And if you've got lots of blood insulin, but your blood sugar is kind of teetering on a diabetic side or even not so teetering but high, it means you've got low insulin receptors because your adipokines, your fat cells, are generating molecules that are jamming up your insulin receptors and turning them off. And leptin metabolic will reverse that. That's amazing. Back in a moment. Welcome back, and Ryan, we're back on air.
But they're short on other things, so.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What we're trying to do is round that knowledge base. So
anything after I went through the whole bland is the...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, Ryan, we're back on air now. So what I want to do is talk about some of the application of these neat things. For example, one of the most important breakthroughs is the idea of fat-soluble thiamine. If you see thiamine deficiency, it means, by and large, there's a thiaminase, so someone has a massive fungal overgrowth in their body. They can be pre-diabetic, they can be congestive heart failure, they can have all kinds of reasons why they're blocking it, but if you have thiamine deficiency, thiamine is necessary for your mitochondria to actually work for entry into the Krebs cycle. Or the Sven-Georgi cycle, which is a Hungarian biochemist who actually discovered it. It wasn't really Krebs from Germany. And we tell people, I said, when we find, for example, on the QRMA or other testing, your thiamine levels are in your boots, well, the first thing we got to do is clear out the fungi. The second thing we got to do is give you high doses of fat-soluble thiamine, and we have the ultra-thiamine B1 and allothymine. Then we talk about different deficiencies. If you're mineral deficient, you don't want to have something dug out of the bottom of Salt Lake City or some other deep basin 50 million years old that contains heavy metals. You want trace amino acid chelates, and you want to target just the ones you need. For example, if you take too much zinc, you're going to cause a copper deficiency and other minerals because they compete, especially if they're non-trax. If they're which are called amino acid chelates, they compete with the same transport mechanism, so you can actually create deficiencies or imbalances. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. They aren't aware that if you take certain supplements the body can't even convert, you can get in trouble. Just like we talked about before, vitamin B6. If it's a non-converted form, it'll actually cause polyneuropathy, not just help it, which is bad. When you take things like BioLVR, it's got the activated form of B6, the activated form of B12, and folic acid. The number of people that are over 60 that are B12 deficiency is about 2/3 of the entire population. That's horrendous. And its primary effect is not going to be, so much blood cell crashing or the hemoglobin's low, or they have, we call megakaryocytes, large blood cells in their peripheral blood smear. They're going to have CNS effects. They're going to have delayed myelination. They're going to have pre-dementic changes on MRI scan. If you look with special weighted studies, their quantitative EEG is going to show that their firing of neurons is not really up to snuff. And before you get down to your last few good neurons, there's not a whole lot of warning, is there? It's almost like, if you've got a really big engine in a race car and it can race along with 2 of the 12 cylinders still operating, you don't know until you're down to those last 2 cylinders that things are really bad in your engine. The same thing goes in your brain. You can be in a lot of trouble and may not know you're in trouble until it's really close to the end.
Yeah, there's no real good fuel gauge there that most people can draw on for their brain.
Yeah, exactly. Now, same thing with drinks. We tell people, and we just did a care package earlier this week to a friend of ours that crashed because she went through conventional chemotherapy and radiation, and now after the 4th cycle of her chemo, which we warned her not to do, was like, please, don't do this. But she did anyway. And what we did is we said, look, we're going to try to rescue you. We gave her Ageless. We gave her My NutriComplete. We gave her a Vitamineral Max. We gave her a bunch of things, essential fatty acids, to try to help repair her cell membranes, because when you do radiation, you damage cell membranes. So you need things like Omega Supreme, Krill, Nutrifos, Neurogen, etc., because you're damaging cell membranes. In fact, that's why you damage blood vessel walls. You damage nerve fiber tracts. You actually can get patchy dysmyelination of peripheral nerves. You can get spinal cord gliosis if you hit enough near the spinal cord. You actually get gliosis of the spinal cord. We've seen people who have actually ended up with quadriplegia or paraplegia caused by radiation, depending on how high they have in the spinal cord or spinal nerve roots. Not smart, but again, not smart things happening by doctors is pretty common. When doctors go on strike, the death rate drops dramatically. Sorry to say. It doesn't matter if it's here or Israel or everywhere. I'm telling you the truth, okay? And people say, and the thing is, like, I'm half a lawyer, I could probably go back and get my law degree in a matter of a year or two, because I've been an expert witness and I've gone through court so many times and taken special courses at Stoneleigh Brook, etc. And it really is pretty disgusting. It's basically sloppiness. And I call it the medical thuggery department. They teach doctors how to be medical thugs to not only their colleagues but also the patients, that you do this or else we're not talking anymore. We're going to give you 2 or 3 more toxic drugs just to get you under control, and your numbers have to be under control. It doesn't matter, for example, if you're drinking somebody's blood pressure down has been up for 20 years, if you bring it down quickly enough, and they've already discussed this year, published it a few months ago, you'll shut down their kidneys and their brain. Because it may not be being perfused well, but with higher pressure, it's being perfused. If you decrease the perfusion of your kidneys before the body adapts, adios, renal function. It was nice knowing you. See you later. You look at your creatinine clearance, it goes right through the floor, because if you're going to lower blood pressure, you want to do it naturally with exercise, diet, nitric oxide. You can test the Berkeley test strips. You want to make sure you stop microalbumin with things like Vein-Away and carnosine. You want to stop the toxins that are destroying the kidney with glycation, with free radical damage that's causing that. And all these are done naturally. There's no drug that's going to do this. Even drugs that you would think would help, like metformin, these drugs have got horrible side effects. Dark spots in your vision, vertigo, fluid retention, weight gain, memory disorders. That's the least of the toxic drugs that they'll give you. And then the newer diabetic drugs, they can actually increase your fat cell number. I remember talking to a diabetic not long ago, and he took a drug that's now blacklisted. The drug's actually off the market. And he gained 40 pounds in one month on the drug. 40. 40. Wow. And it wasn't just water weight. A lot of it was real fat weight, because his fat cell number, and this is actually in the research, went up quite a bit. So I tell people, vitamin VX, vibrational exercise, number one. Take our drink. Start off with Ageless Life Support Glycemics. Get Vitamineral Max Minerals Plus in your body and phospholipids to rebuild your cell membranes. Omega Supreme Krill, etc. What are your favorites, Ryan? What would you tell people if you're, say, I want to do something well for my body, but I really don't like taking pills, or a minimum number of pills? What would you tell them to take? What would you tell them to take, Ryan? What would be the top things you'd recommend that they try?
I would tell them that one of the top things that people should look at is the shakes. When you start looking at something like Ageless, so many people are worried about how their immune system's functioning, or they know they get sick often. That is a great formula to bolster up the way that the body not only detoxifies, but helps the immune system with its bioactive immunoglobulins. Just a tremendous formulation. And then for people that suffer a lot of chronic stuff going on, lots of systemic inflammation, really look at something like Life Support.
Right.
It's basically like a giant reset button for the body. It works in so many different levels. That would be a great one. And then for people with weight management, the glucose issues, insulin resistance, the metabolic syndrome, they should be looking at that meal replacement of glycemic meal.
Yeah, that's amazing recommendations. That's part of my drink. But NutriComplete, Glycemics, Ageless Energize, and Life Support, Omega cod liver liquid, Nutriodine. I may add some ALC 1000 and D-ribose, and wow. Welcome back, and I think I heard the bumper just pop in for a second there. I think we're back, and Ryan, let's go through some other things I want to kind of concentrate on here. Let's say somebody wants a detox. We get lots of questions about detox. I tell people, Kelar Max, Ultra Liquid Zeolite, Xenoestrogen Detox, BioLVR, Samethyl. Most people don't realize heavy metals are methylated. When you take methylate, if you want to methylate mercury or other forms of heavy metals in your body, arsenic, it's the methylation pathway that puts it in your bile. The basic process for detox takes a non-charged molecule, charges it up or ionizes it, and puts it into the soluble portions of something that can take it out of the body through the bile in the liver or out through the kidney. But it has to be converted from a non-polar to a polar molecule, and then it detoxifies it through methylation, glucuronidation, sulfation, etc., which is the primary components of Life Support. So I tell people BioLVR, Xenoestrogen Detox, NutriDefense, which has anhydrous catechin, the Green Tea Select. It turns out you can't even have bad breath if you take enough Green Tea Select. And the Japanese research on catechins shows virtually wipes out breast cancer and prostate cancer if you take enough catechins. Every capsule of Green Tea Select is equivalent to 10 pots of green tea. That's a lot. Then we look at blood vessels. People have varicose veins, spider nevi, fragile vessels in the back of the eye because they've got elevated blood insulin levels. And I bet their doctors or retinologists are not measuring VEGF levels, are they? Vascular endothelial growth factor. They may do a retinal photograph with fluorescein stain. They may do a retinography or a Goldman field test, but they're not measuring VEGF, because if you take the right supplements, your VEGF level is going to drop, especially leptin metabolic, Vein-Away, which is the a special enzyme we bring from the Spanish orange. And things are anti-glycating agents. Vitamin B1, by the way, is very good at blocking and lowering glycation as well. So if your thiamine levels are in your boots, you're just asking for glycation and your C-reactive protein to go into orbit. So, simple things, vascular growth factor. If these little blood vessels burst in the back of the membranes, called the Bruch's membrane under your eye, you're going to end up with an intraretinal hemorrhage and you're going to go blind. Because, believe it or not, the blood vessels are above the rods and cones in your retina. Before the light enters the rods and cones, they go through a small capillary bed under the Bruch's membrane. People don't know the eye anatomy. I guess including the eye doctors don't think, oops, you mean if I have fragile capillaries? Oh, no, I got a laser. I can laser those suckers rather than lowering their VEGF level with supplements. How about you don't want to have to do laser on their eyes. You want to be able to lower it so they don't rupture or end up with some small bleeds. You have to laser heck out of their eyes until eventually they have no visual field at all. And if you're listening and you're an eye doctor, start figuring, can I find a lab that can measure VEGF levels or somebody's insulin levels? Because they're tied directly together, as well as the adipokines from their fat tissue. Their white fat is generating the adipokines that cause the vascular endothelial growth factor. It's one of the byproducts of your fat tissue. It's an exocrine organ. And do the eye doctors know anything about adipocytes? I don't think so. Do you think so? I don't think so. I would say not. I would say they have no idea what cytokines are generated by fat tissue that can affect the eye. I would say if you did it as part of the multi-guest questions to pass your board recertification, they'd all get failed. Not good. They may be very good at removing cataracts, putting a buckle to help with somebody's retinal detachment, extricating an eye to prevent an eye from being attacked by autoimmune disease if you have traumatic injury from a car accident or a bullet or a knife wound to the eye. Because if you don't remove the eye and enucleate it, you'll get an autoimmune attack in the opposite eye because it's a secure site. Most people aren't aware of that. They don't realize that some conditions are so bad, if you don't remove the eye, the other eye will be attacked by your immune system. They're not aware of that. Most regular doctors have no idea that happens. Then we look at things like simethyl. Simethyl is really powerful. We had quite a while to get it back, to get our suppliers to get simethyl, but it's really important. If you have a depression, BH4 biopterin, simethyl, and calmide. And then Minerals Plus, which has the orotate form of lithium. It has manganese and molybdenum. Molybdenum is extremely important for the tryptase and pyrrolase enzymes. It's also important for the enzymes to stop HAEK and HAG, which is high-altitude pulmonary edema, high-altitude cerebral edema. So if you want to go climb in Mount Everest or go up to the Rocky Mountains and go to Vail, you better be taking your Minerals Plus. Because if your molybdenum level's low, you're not going to be able to adapt and create nitric oxide. That's why nitric oxide necessarily requires molybdenum. And in fact, I even talked to the researchers at the University of Colorado in their pediatric research unit on the idea of using low levels of nitric oxide to reverse pulmonary hypertension, which can be lethal in babies that are born at high altitudes. Because if they don't have the enzymes to generate nitric oxide, they're going to die of pulmonary hypertension and heart failure. So if you can't generate nitric oxide because your molybdenum level is low, you're in big trouble. But is your doctor going to measure molybdenum levels? Answer is bleep not. They're not going to do it. And even a lot of natural doctors, are they going to measure your molybdenum levels? I don't think so. Same way with Vision Max. We have the most advanced vision formula. You don't wait till you can't see a thing in front of you and now you're driving off the freeway and hitting a curb, or you can't read or watch the big game on football because it opens up, I think, next August 5th or 6th is the preseason. You take your Vision Max, your Can-C, you take Nutritrel, you take phospholipids like Omega Supreme Krill. Ryan, let's talk about eye care now, because people need to realize it's like if you don't take care of it now, don't expect to resurrect it later. It's really difficult. You can do it, but it's a monstrous job, and we haven't mastered stem cell therapy by any means yet. We're getting there, but it requires preparation of the soil. Yeah, and if you are getting in trouble, we can resurrect you quite a ways. I mean, we can prepare your tissues so that your stem cells can help if you get a stem cell transplant, or if you use transorbital or transcranial somopulse, which increases your stem cells, and lumen photon. but you're a long way back, and we can't tell how much recovery you're going to make. Don't wait for that. Start taking the Vision Max now. I take it every day. Take Vein-Away every day. If you're a diabetic, for example, or if you just have hypertension for a while, check your microalbumin, not just protein. And if you're spilling microalbumin, you've got to get your ultrathymine B1 level up and your level of the ultrathymine B1 to get that up. And you need Vein-Away to make sure you're not spilling and destroying your glomerular nephrons. Real simple. And you can do this urine test that'll show you the microalbumin is normalizing. And if it doesn't normalize, you're saying bye-bye nephron, see ya. That's what's happening. Is your doctor going to tell you that? Bleep, probably not. That's why I want you to beat up your doctor. This is Beat Up Your Doctor Day. Ask them questions. If they don't know, I won't beat them up. I'll just try to teach them. But I'm a little bit angry at the fact that this knowledge that I've had that's sometimes 20 or 30 years old now hasn't even seeped partway into the medical or dental professions. We're still having dentists in the VA giving mercury amalgams. We still have doctors, the dentists, who want to argue that mercury is really not so bad, although if they spill it, it's a hazmat scene. Or cardiologists, like one of the latest books a few years ago by Sherry Rogers, Is Your Cardiologist Killing You? The answer is, Sherry's right, yes, your cardiologist is killing you. It's like that old movie, they're killing you softly. Or maybe not so softly. They're not killing you softly, they're killing you with viciousness, gay abandon, and serial killer instinct of that series on TV, what's his name? Who's a forensic pathologist. You know who I'm thinking of, right? And he's a killer of serial killers, let's put it that way.
Dexter?
Dexter, that's it. They're dextered, let's put it that way. A little humor goes a long way, to say it's like the WD-40 of the mind. Makes things lubricate. Back in a moment. A little humor, a little knowledge, make you better.
If you're going to take...
Welcome back, and Ryan, in this last segment, let's concentrate on some of the important things that people should know. We've got new updated protocols all the time. Here's the new structure of the protocols. There's core, which is anywhere from 3 to 5 things, usually. Then there's level 2, 3, and 4. I tell people most times you're going to do at least core and level 2 initially. I'm going to give recommendations for conventional tests that your doctor can or should do, or you need to seek the kind of doctor that can do those tests. And we have academies of anti-aging medicine, environmental medicine, and advancement in medicine. And if you can't find a doctor that's properly trained, you need to fire your doctor. The problem is that the doctors are not being upgraded. They're being recertified to teach the old stuff that makes sure they continue giving toxic polypharmacy. And if your doctor, all they have is a very fancy magic script pad and a magic pen, they're going to kill you. They might do it slowly, but they will eventually kill you. They're going to give you treatment where they're changing your numbers, for example, lowering your cholesterol. I recently talked to a doctor that says he treats all his diabetics with an HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor. What? Or you talk to doctors that treat XYZ cancer with paint by numbers chemo, because they also do IPT, insulin potentiated chemo. I said, that's 20 years out of date. You don't want to use conventional chemotherapy. You want gene-based therapy. You want to use nutraceuticals. Like B17 is fine. And there's other nutraceuticals like ellagic acid, and our whole protocol is good for all cancers. For example, we have, and I just want to talk about this for a minute, we have malignant arrest and malignant block. Let's talk about these for a minute. Every cancer is a hypoxic state where anaerobic metabolism, the genes of the cell, start to be switched on and off. So, Ryan, let's talk about shutting off the metabolism with malignant arrest and malignant block to make cancer cells either repair their DNA or go through apoptosis. These two are biggies, aren't they?
I think pretty easy for people to grasp. This comes from cruciferous vegetables like broccoli. And I know most people go, yeah, I'm supposed to eat broccoli, but why? Well, the component that's in there, the sulforaphane glucosinolate, it's just a huge beneficial component for our bodies. And as you say, this has a major implication for not only regulation of inflammation, detoxification, but it also triggers our own antioxidant protection, which we all need every day. What's neat is you can either use malignant block, but don't forget that same ingredient you're going to find in NutriComplete. You're going to find it in Ageless, Ageless Energize. You're going to find it in the, which one? Oh, it's slipped my mind right now. Oh, Regenerex is another one. And so, using the NutriMed line, one of the things that you're doing there is you're using high-end ingredients throughout the line that are covering so much of the space that you need to protect yourself long-term. The Maligna Arrest, that's a very different compound. That's actually known as a fermented wheat germ extract. Been studied for a long time, comes out of Europe. And this has very, very interesting studies on its ability to basically disrupt the way that abnormal cells want to eat sugar, because they eat it at 50 times the normal rate of cells. So they're very hungry for glucose. And by interrupting that, they slow down their ability to replicate, which is a great thing. It also interrupts their ability to repair themselves, known as the PARP mechanism. And then it's also known as a uncoverer or unmasker of kind of the camouflage that these abnormal cells use in the body to hide from our immune cells. And so being able to use something like Maligna Arrest, all of a sudden you're able to really get after these abnormal cells in a way that you wouldn't normally be able to do. So,
and people also don't understand that when you remove a primary or even secondary tumors, you're removing what's called the cancer cells. But people don't realize that for every cancer cell, there's a cancer stem cell population. And when you blast it with conventional chemotherapy or radiation, you actually get rid of what I call the Wally cells, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger cells, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, they survive. They just get a stronger Austrian accent and they say, "Good, it's like pumping chemotherapy. It makes me stronger." Guess what? Bad idea. When you take even our nutraceuticals, even if you're stupid enough to take regular conventional chemo, the Arnold Schwarzenegger cells are going to die too. And that's what's really important, because a lot of people, their only alternative they have is to go like the very awful hospital system, the VA system, or one of these appointed systems by state healthcare insurance plans through, say, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, and all they're going to offer you is conventional. Well, you better take our nutraceuticals so you can survive chemo and you don't create a whole stem cell line that now is really going to get aggressive when the cancer returns, and also be completely resistant to whatever previous treatment you had. So that's why these are so important. Then, of course, vitamin D levels. If you're dying vitamin D levels in your boots, we recommend both the Myco D2, which is both, and the MyCell D3. We have the drops, 1,000 units per drop, or 5,000 units for soft gel. I take 5,000, two of them in the morning, because I know what my blood level is. I've actually tested it. My blood level, normal level, should be up to 100. Mine is like 78, 80. So it's really good, because I took a whole lot for a while, and I don't need to take as much now because I'm getting lots of sun, and I monitor my blood level. The best way to measure if you're good actually is a QRMA. And if you find things that are targeting particularly bad, then you arrange a bunch of tests through lab testing direct to actually test those target areas that are kind of not good or out of whack, and then find out and then target your therapy to try to get rid of them. So that's how important this is. The other area, of course, we use is, of course, the enzymes to strip off the capsule of the tumor, Inflamex. We use, of course, nutraceuticals to boost your immune system, like NutriDefense, which will boost your natural NK killer cell activity. There's often stealth pathogens, so we use Allicin Med, Nutriodine, and Silver 100, because most cancers have heavy metals, toxins, and stealth pathogens growing in the tumor or secondaries. They act like a kind of a tumor magnet. The best way to think of it is like if you get what we call plate-like atelectasis. If someone after surgery doesn't use a blow bottle and expand their lungs, the atelectasis of the parts of the lung alveoli actually will grab bacteria that flows through your bloodstream, and you'll get pneumonia, not because you breathed it in, but because it's in your blood, tiny little bacteria, and then your lung acts like a filter to grab them. So, and also you want to perfuse those tissues, so that gives you an idea of how we approach it. Same thing with bones. You want to take bone crystals, bone generator. You want to take MyCell D3, Myco D2. You want to be taking full vitamin K2, menaquinone 7, and you want to take the rebar to build on the bone, which is Collagen Max, and Tendon Bender, which is type 1 collagen. So let's talk about bone for a minute. You want to build bones, you want vibrational exercise, but you have to take the right supplements. And I'm surprised at how many men have got really not so good bones. When we do a test like a QRMA, we find out the vast majority of men over 30, they're already working on osteoporosis. We're not waiting till the 50s or 60s. They're already blowing their bones already because they drink a lot of beer. They don't have any real good balanced magnesium and calcium. They have almost no magnesium because calcium is 2-to-1 ratio calcium ions to magnesium, and it should go to your bones. If you don't take bone crystals, calcium is like a wild man inside your cells with an axe. Only 1 calcium ion per 100,000 to 10,000 magnesium ions in every cell. Ratio. That's the ratio.
One of the other aspects, like you were talking about the importance of D, also, the full spectrum vitamin K, where you're talking, getting that in there as well. And so people that have bad guts, like you were just describing, like a guy who drinks a lot of beer, but, some of these people, they've taken antibiotics, they've got a messed up gut, they consume sugar, and all of a sudden it throws off the gut's ability to produce enough K2, basically, for the body to regulate.
K2 is made by your probiotic bacteria. We don't make K2, your bowel bacteria does. In fact, we know from the stem cell clinics, and I've talked to a bunch of them, not just here in California, but elsewhere, if you don't have probiotic bacteria in your gut, and they do a CDSA2 test on you at, say, Genova Metametrics in Atlanta, they won't even attempt to do a bone marrow transplant from your hip or your iliac bone to your injury. After they do flow cytometry and separate the stem cells, they won't even try it, because if they know your gut's screwed up, the stem cells aren't going to take, because the base nutrients, vitamin K2, which are necessary for stem cells to work, and things like zinc copper. If you don't have adequate levels of zinc and copper, stem cells don't work. They don't work at all. Yeah, same with vitamin D. If your vitamin D is not adequate, stem cells cannot rebuild your heart, your lung, your liver, kidney, anything. Amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's not amazing, but it's not. The answer is not a complex issue. It's merely just start restoring the fundamentals. It starts with something as basic as Vitamineral Max to make sure you have a proper foundation for nutrients consistently getting into the body, not only activated forms of like B vitamin complex.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we gave to this lady as well as part of her care package for her bone marrow crashing. Give her Vitamineral Max, as they say. It sounds like what is called Veggie Mix in Australia, which, as they say in Australia, tastes like hell. Must be good for you, mate. No, Vitamineral Max doesn't taste like hell, but it sure is good for you, mate.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of edge, a little humor today. Hopefully you'll change your lifestyle and attitude and realize, fire your toxic doc. Get on the supplements. Get a functional medicine doctor that we can work with if you need one, and take care of yourself.